Giving up hope in prison. The issue. Prisoners in all sorts of tragic, horrific, and traumatizing situations are losing hope quickly, leading to suicide and depression, as shown in this graph. Losing hope is a choice, even if that choice is difficult to make. Prisoners can express their feelings through art, journalism, or by working their way out of the war. If prisoners stay hopeful in dark times, they will build resilience to aid them with their struggles in the future. The events I will be examining are the Holocaust, the Vietnam War, and federal prison. These three things produced some of the toughest, most resilient survivors who kept up hope and expressed their feelings through art, journalism, or by working their way out. There are many famous examples of this, such as Nelson Mandela and Anne Frank, who never gave up and made the best of their situation by journaling their experiences. Prison. Prisoners who express their thoughts and emotions through art often maintain hope longer than others. Nelson Mandela, a famous journalist who wrote a book on his experiences in prison, wrote that he never succumbed to monotony and routine. Mandela came out of prison resilient and became one of the best prime ministers South Africa ever had. A news article written by Mark Drenbo, the founder of Jails to Jobs and a respected author, writes about how reporters were shocked to hear that prisoners never gave up and continued the search for jobs, and never once considered the possibility that their search would prove fruitless. Drenbo describes something similar to what happened to Mandela, that prison led him to never give up on his dreams. Another example of this is Alan Hudson, a prisoner who paints pictures of the outside world. He supports his family with them, and says it helps him maintain hope. Hudson painted and Mandela journaled, and both of these coping mechanisms give them hope for the future. As Mandela says, "I am fundamentally an optimist." The Holocaust. The Holocaust is one of, if not the most tragic event in human history. Victims were held in concentration camps and tortured. Ruth Reaches, holding a PhD in psychology, conducted a study where she interviewed Holocaust survivors to find if they had increased resilience. And she proved that they did through her conversations and interviews with the survivors. They experienced severe mental trauma from the event, but the reason they are still with us today is because they never lost hope. Pairing with Reaches, Dina Segal, a Harvard researcher, conducts another study on the resilience of Holocaust survivors and finds that the ones who worked and relentlessly tried to improve their situation made it out alive. The ancient Vietnamese proverb, "Adversity is the mother of wisdom," shows that the Vietnamese have valued resilience for ages. Many Vietnamese prisoners of war emerged resilient, and an interview with a pilot who flew prisoners of war to safety noted that the survivors were the ones who refused to give up hope and escape. Agreeing with this, Francine Segovia, with a PhD in psychology, conducted a study that found that prisoners of war emerged resilient based on their disposition. While both authors agreed that the survivors were the ones who never succumbed to monotony, Aaron McCoy, a distinguished professor at NCU, examined the common themes of resilience in literature produced during the Vietnam War. Many forms of literature, including books and newspapers, encouraged prisoners to never give up and work their way out of the war, especially the ones held in concentration camps. This all goes to show that the Vietnam War produced some of the mentally toughest, most resilient prisoners who relentlessly worked to improve their situation. Many researchers claim that a loss of freedom has little to no effect on resilience, and that genetics are the base of resilience. This was the topic of a study conducted by Desai Joshua, who found that prisoners generally emerge worse off or unaffected by their time in jail. However, these were the prisoners with a pessimistic disposition who refuse to believe that their time in jail can make them better people. An example of this from the respected Military Times, one of the highest-ranking news sources for military news, disproves that claim with an emotional, heartfelt article. Even those who have learned resilience skills, however, should not expect homecoming to be effortless or free of emotion. It is quite normal to experience days or several weeks of mild to moderate symptoms of depression, anxiety, and anger, even if the initial homecoming was full of joy. Military Times. If genetics were the determining factor in resilience, soldiers would be resilient against everything. However, just because soldiers learn to be resilient in war, they still have to face emotions upon returning home. These three events that famously leave people traumatized and scarred for the rest of their lives are devastating to society. Improving on how people react during incarceration is of utmost importance to our society. These victims were quick to lose hope, but the survivors expressed their feelings through art and emerged with a newfound sense of resilience. By maintaining a positive outlook on your situation, and by not succumbing to routine, as Mandela puts it, prisoners will be less depressed and more encouraged to become better people. There's my work segment.
Okay, thank you, Davey. Yes, questions? So what information did you need that you weren't able to find or locate during your research?
So a lot of information that I wasn't able to find was how many Holocaust survivors, what they did to escape their situation. I could only find a few interviews and conversations where a lot of Holocaust survivors just claimed they worked their way out and refused to give up hope. But I definitely could use more examples of how more people made it out.
Okay, and how do you use the conclusions of others to come up with your own, move forward in your own research?
So definitely a conclusion that I found was a prisoner who painted a beautiful painting and described himself as a bird that would one day fly free. I saw that as this prisoner painted and he gave him hope for the future. And it made me realize that if prisoners can express their feelings and never give up hope, they will eventually make it out of their rough situation and build resilience.
Okay. Thank you.